And namaste. Welcome back to Yoga PodClass. It's Chelsie, Lael, Kennedy here with Katie Pudwill with Grow RDH, and we're here to have another conversation about embodied connections and how our mouth is connected to the rest of our body. Today, specifically, we're going to talk about the tension in our jaw, the clenching, and all of the effects that that has on our body and possibly some ways to overcome that. Katie, welcome. So glad to have you back.
Hello. We are excited. We're going to talk all about the jaw today. And I think you would be surprised. Not you wouldn't be surprised, but this is such a problem. There are so many patients that come to us with jaw pain, headaches, and it just is a really like an epidemic. I don't know.
Absolutely. Our bodies are holding stress like chronically. And we kind of haven't been taught that emotional, wise mind processing, right? We kind of been taught to just hold on to our emotions. And that's exactly what's happening. Our body is holding on to these things. So as we get started, as always, I want to invite you to really tune in and drop in right here. As you're taking in this information, permission, invitation to soften between the eyebrows. Breathing expansively down into the belly, front, back, side to side, and then relaxing the jaw also. And maybe when I offer those suggestions, you actually notice how tight things are. That's okay. It's the noticing that matters. And when we know better, we can do better. So don't be frustrated if you're like, oh my goodness, I just noticed all this tension. Yay, that is something to celebrate because now you know where your work is at. We'll start with my favorite is when we lengthen our exhale by 2. So we're going to inhale for 4, hold at the top for 2 if you're not pregnant, and then exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to inhale again for 4, priming our nervous system to receive this information. Hold at the top for 2, and exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last time inhaling, noticing those spaces and places inside of your body that are difficult or tense or rigid to breathe into. Hold at the top for 2. And then exhale fully, pulling the belly button to the spine for 6. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for your presence here as we dive in to the pain and tension in our jaw. Katie, I'm going to let you start. From a dental health perspective, what are you seeing in patients? You've already mentioned that there's a lot of complaints. We get headaches, tight jaws. What's happening with our teeth? What's happening with our mouth?
Yeah. So the main patient complaint that we hear is headaches. Especially if you're grinding at night, a lot of headaches behind the ears, tension, even up above the eyes. But specifically, that is their main concern. But what we see in the mouth is also very indicative of damage. So a lot of the times, patients can have wear facets on their cusps of their molars. They can have attrition on the anterior teeth. And so we can see the wear just from the grinding alone. We also see chipped teeth. We can see abfractions, which kind of happens down below the gum line from all that pressure. It's little microfractures that eventually fracture off. And some of them, their abfractions are even so bad that they start to complain of cold sensitivity because then their dentin is exposed because they have these little fractures. So lots of things that we can see in the mouth. Other things that we can see, like even in the face, is having really, really strong masseter muscles. Sometimes the temporalis too up here, but the masseter muscles for sure. And over time, unfortunately that can lead to, obviously if you have dental work done, it can lead to the dental work breaking down. It can lead to fractured teeth long term. But overall, in terms of function, what we really don't want to see is parafunctional habits, which clenching is a parafunctional habit. But if we have some muscle imbalances or, hypertrophy, that can even lead to parafunction in just the way you bite and in general, the way that your mouth works together and how you chew. So those are some long-term things we can see that are definitely not good.
Absolutely. In yoga psychology, the jaw is part of what they call the Granthi system. And it talks about the energetic knots that are formed by suppressed emotion. In neuroscience, it's part of the brainstem threat loop. And we're going to untie that knot today. I notice you were bringing your fingers to your jawline, right? And I invite our listeners and take that time to really notice the feeling of your fingers and how it connects to where you're touching. while also noticing the support of your seat beneath you. And just kind of taking in what you see, what you feel, sensation. And if you notice any sensation, perhaps it has a color or a texture or a shape. And it's just taking this time to tune in and notice what you notice without judgment, without shame, but really with curiosity and compassion. What are some of your best recommendations for supporting people who have chronic jaw pain and clenching? I know there's so many different, like over the counter, even like what am I thinking of? Mouth guards, and then there's
Guards, yeah.
yeah, there's fitted mouth guards, and when we talk about this jaw pain, it doesn't just stay here. There's so many muscles that are connected through our neck into our upper shoulders that the pain actually can radiate down. The tension can actually radiate down. Katie, what do you suggest? Are mouth guards a great idea? Are they helpful, or are they just kind of covering up symptoms? What do you see?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things that we can do in office, in a dental office to help with different things. There's two different types of mouth guards, really. I've worked for a number of different dentists, and they all sort of have their own philosophy behind, you know, what mouth guards they recommend. One of the main mouth guards is just a night guard, and all that really does is prevent further damage from happening. Unfortunately, it doesn't take you out of occlusion, so you're still grinding, you still have that muscle movement, but it protects your teeth. So at the very minimum, that is a great solution just to protect the damage from happening. Unfortunately, though, we like to talk about, fixing the problem. The other type of mouth guard is a mouth guard that would actually take you out of occlusion. And this, again, some dentists don't really like it. One of them is called an NTI, if you've heard of that. It's a specific type of occlusal guard, but what it does is it pulls your jaw forward, so you're biting on your anterior teeth, and so it takes your jaw completely out of occlusion, so you can't grind. Now, that's great. It's not great for some patients, especially if you have advanced periodontal disease and you have, all that pressure on those anterior teeth. It's going to potentially cause worse bone loss, but it does take your mouth out of occlusion. So it helps in that sense. And it's not necessarily the best long-term solution, but while you're maybe doing some of the things that you're going to talk about it and retraining your brain and retraining your habits, it does help your muscles relax, and it takes you out of that habit, right? So if it's a habit thing, it takes you out of that habit, so your brain physically can't do it. So that's a really good option. One of the newer options is Botox. People are having Botox specifically put in the masseter muscle. Again, it doesn't stop the habit, it doesn't stop the grinding, but it can reduce the force of the pressure, the amount of pressure that's being put on the teeth. So again, it limits the amount of damage. And again, while you're retraining and reducing those habits, it is a good option if you have very, very, heavy, deep occlusal forces going on. So Botox is an option. And those are kind of the three main ones, I guess, in terms of what we can do right now.
Our jaw is actually tied to our fight and flight reflex. So when we perceive a threat, our body is going to holding and tension patterns. And our body actually has 3 diaphragms, and it's in the jaw, our breath diaphragm, and in the pelvis. And we'll continue diving into those spaces later. In yoga, when we're talking about the jaw and what we're holding, right, when we're talking about those root things that are causing the physiological expression of clenched jaws, right? We're often linking unspoken truth and swallowed emotion from a yogic philosophy. Trauma-informed perspective, I find that to also be true. I love where ancient wisdom is meeting modern neuroscience and saying, we got to do something with the things that we're going through in our body, because our body really is keeping the tally, keeping the score, and it's going to hold. And the only way out, in my opinion and in my experience, is through. So I've used both the NTI night guard. I have done some massage for TMJ, which is actually a very, very painful process. They really dig into those muscles, but it does release it. But I still have the work to do on the emotional, energetic level. And another thing that I have tried is dry needling. And that seemed to have a really profound effect that lasted even longer than the massage therapy did. And it wasn't as painful as the massage. So unfortunately, with the NTI, I actually shifted my teeth. I now have an open bite, right? My teeth were safer, but now I've created another issue that Katie, you could probably tell me what else I've created, because I've always been working with my forward head posture, and that goes back to our episode about the nasal breathing, right? Making sure that we're breathing through our nose and not through our mouth, which contributes to forward head posture. So how does our jaw clenching support or not support our physical alignment?
Yeah, it does not support it for sure. And again, last episode we ended up talking a lot about myofunctional therapy, which I thought was interesting because neither of us are. However, when we talk about that rest position, and again, it's just mind over matter. It's retraining your brain to go into certain habits or avoid certain habits. And so having an idea of what your rest position is. So when you swallow and you keep your lips closed after you swallow, that immediate place of where, and then you put your tongue to the roof of your mouth, that should be your rest position. And I don't remember the exact number. I want to say it's like 8 minutes of our day should be spent in functional habits of occlusion, meaning our teeth are only supposed to meet together like that with our muscles in tension 8 minutes a day. That's how long it takes to eat. Everything else is parafunctional. And so if we think about how often we are not in a functional habit, that's a lot of our day. And so retraining your brain just to go into rest position. So if you feel that, and a lot of times even just anxiety, people that have high anxiety tend to be grinders and clenchers. If you can retrain your brain to just think, am I in rest position? Am I in rest position? Put the tongue to your roof of your mouth, and that relaxes your jaw. So that's one of the things we tell patients, because we know it is such a habit. A lot of the times patients will come in and they'll maybe ask for a night guard, and they'll be like, but what if I grind during the day? And it's like, that's a really good point. You can't wear a night guard all day long. But that is one of our biggest recommendations, is try to feel what rest position feels like. So if you swallow, keep your lips closed after you swallow and lift your tongue to the roof of your mouth. That should be your rest position and the position that you should be in most of the day. So that is one of the habitual things that we try to recommend.
I love that. And 8 minutes, if you follow me, you know that my philosophy is we're changing things 1% of our day at a time with micro habits. And 8 minutes is half of that. So 1% of our day is 14 minutes and 46 seconds. We're trying to build in more return to that conscious awareness and spatial awareness of what it is we're doing. In yoga, we call that the witnessing self. Even now, just maybe taking in, we can do, let's do the drop tongue reset. So like you said, we're going to actually place the tongue softly on the roof of the mouth, but relax the tongue. And then inhale and exhale through the nose. And as you exhale, imagine your jaw releasing downward just 1%, kind of like a melting sensation. Then taking that next inhale and 1 more percent drop as you exhale through the nose. So interestingly enough, while we're doing this, relaxing the tongue reduces that masseter activation by 30 to 40%. And one of the things that I learned about that masseter muscle is that it's one of the strongest forces of output in our body, and it's capable of 150 to 200 pounds of pressure. That's when we're waking. But when we are clenching at night, it's actually 6 to 10 times more pressure. And that is just wowing to me that our teeth don't just crumble under the pressure. That being said, I imagine that's a long-term effect, which is why I went out of my way, I need a mouth guard. I need to protect my teeth, right?
That's the unfortunate thing, is that's what's happening. We see that in the mouth with the abfraction and the wear facets, and it's over time, it doesn't seem like a lot, but over time you do years of this and it does show.
My teeth feel sharper, and it's I could cut my tongue with my teeth. And really what we're describing in this holding pattern is when we feel that chronic tension and stress, we go into what psychology calls the armoring. And our jaw is one of the first place to kind of get that, it's wowing how our nervous system automatically responds in these situations. And we're talking about that sympathetic fight, flight, freeze, fawn, fight. Yeah, fight. Or the parasympathetic, where we actually rest, relax, and are able to digest, able to process, but also able to heal. When we are spending our time in that fight or flight sympathetic nervous system and you have an ailment, you're not in a space to heal. So it's getting that switch of the vagus nerve to say, I am safe. I can let go. And maybe we don't even know what we're holding on to. Maybe we are so busy, we're on that autopilot. We got to say, okay, maybe now just take a deep breath in with me, perhaps close the eyes, and that invitation to relax the jaw, and asking yourself either out loud or silently, what am I holding on to? Journaling out the answer is a really great way to get past the mind brain loop, which can keep us on the autopilot. So when you write it, you use different parts of your brain that can maybe pull out deeper answers. And this is where we get into the self-study, svadhyaya in yoga, modern psychology, or people will call that shadow work. But really it's looking at ourselves, looking at our patterns and our behaviors, and then asking why. And then maybe asking why again. And peeling back another layer of like, okay, but why? And most of us don't take the time to do that. But my invitation, Katie's invitation, is she's saying 8 minutes, I'm saying almost 15, of that calibrated nervous system noticing with your breath, and that subtle shift that will begin to happen more often as you check in. Some of the ways that I work with clients, I said, you know what, set a timer for 3 times a day in 3 minutes, right? Now you're up to 9. Just those little micro check-ins, because you'll notice that even in those 3 minutes, you can get a vagus nerve activation flip switch, right? So if you're in your autopilot, your daily routine, and you're just like, come in, take that deep breath in, that expansive breath, and then exhale, feeling your feet grounded on the earth, feeling the support beneath your seat. Invitation to relax the jaw and soften between the eyebrows, or maybe just that permission granted and allowing that breath to wash in over the body and then melt away without forcing anything to shift. So as we talk about this emotional feedback cue, the asking, why am I clenching? Perhaps that response is, my jaw is protecting me. What is it trying to help me survive? And this shifts the belief from self-blame to self-communication. And all of the changes that we are going to make in our habits, in our self-awareness, in our noticing, are going to come through our belief system. And if we are shaming ourselves or blaming ourselves, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I clenched my jaw and I'm rooting my teeth, we're going to stay stuck, literally, figuratively, emotionally, and then in our body. So relaxing the jaw actually isn't weakness. It takes strength to show up and to notice really what it is that we're avoiding. As we end today's episode, I love leaving you with some journal reflections. Again, writing is such a great way to bypass the mental brain feedback loop, but even just contemplation on your drive home or before bed is powerful. So this is part of that self-reflection, that svadhyaya in yoga philosophy, because yoga is not just about the movement. It's not just about the breath. It's about the awareness. It's about the daily practices. But these are the questions that I have for you today. What emotion come up for you when you think about your unspoken truths? And noticing as these questions wash over your body and being, the sensations that arise, even possibly the emotions, and just noticing curiously, not judging, with love and compassion. The next question is, I lost myself. I actually have a question for you.
Sure.
Okay. I don't know if we already hit it. Like, why is it such a common symptom of modern stress, would you say, this jaw clenching? Is it, would it be one of the first signs that you can see?
If we have a patient coming in like with headaches and stuff, that might be a first sign. But by the time we're seeing it in the mouth, the damage has been done. And a lot of the times people know they're clenchers. They can feel it. They have the headaches and maybe they don't tell us, or, it's something they've been dealing with. But by the time we see it in the mouth, it is usually a long-term thing. So in terms of why it's so common, that is like beyond me. However, I do think because it has such a tie to anxiety, I think if you think about society today and all of the expectations and all of the, I mean, even just look at the economy, look, the money stress, there is a lot of stress in the world. And I just think that if we don't have good coping skills and good ways to deal with that stress, it just comes out the way it's going to come out. It could be, you know, maladaptive coping skills. It could be as severe as drug use or alcohol dependence or things like clenching and grinding that are just habits that you do out of, you're not even catching yourself doing them. But that's kind of my, I don't know, uneducated 2 cents about where it comes from. But yeah, by the time we're seeing it in the mouth, it's definitely been a long-term coping skill.
Okay, so it's not the first place you're going to notice things. It's going to be after it's set in for a while. So that comes back to why these little nuanced noticings matter. Because if you can catch it and train it out, you're going to have better success. As we know, our mouth is key to our overall health, literally. We have sores and different issues in our mouth. We run the risk of so many other infections, specifically because our mouth goes straight to our gut and that goes straight to our brain. And it's all connected in such a fascinating way. I really look forward to diving into our next episode, which I believe is about the pelvic diaphragm. When
Yes.
we relax through the jaw, we're going to be able to relax through our hips and vice versa. And then we've got that connection piece of the diaphragm that's right underneath our lungs, right in our rib cage, and that proper breathing that really matters. So I love sharing these tips. I love walking people through their breathing practices to help them relax and hold that space for them, or be that accountability reminder like, hey, did you check in for your 1% today? And did you ask yourself why, or what am I holding? Is there anything to release?
And I think for any dental hygiene practitioners that are listening, any dental hygienist, if this is so applicable for you guys, if you're having patients that are dealing with this, like I said, we can recommend all the night guards and Botox that we want, but that doesn't solve the root problem of why. And again, it doesn't fix the habit. And what we're trying to do as healthcare practitioners is help them fix the habit. So my recommendation for any hygienist listening is to dig deeper into this, maybe use some of the relaxation and breath techniques that Chelsea's recommending, and recommend them to your patients, because a lot of the times fixing a habit, as we know, even just brushing twice a day and flossing, doesn't happen overnight. Stopping a habit, it takes time. So yes, just dig into these recommendations and recommend them to your patients, and hopefully you're going to see a lot of good change.
Absolutely. And it's such a ripple effect. I love that quote, be the change you wish to see in this world. So when we are taking the time to be present, to be conscious with what is, it slows us down and it gives everybody else permission to do the same, and naturally alleviating stress just by human connection. That's what I love about this Embodied Connection series, because that's what's really it's about. Or dealing with the human condition as it pertains to our mind, body, and our mouth. And this is such an exciting series for me. I also want to invite you guys into, I do have an Oceans of You 33-day recalibration experience that is running now through December 30th. It's not too late to join or catch the replay. Links will be in the comments, but we would love to connect with you, love to hear your feedback and maybe your experiences about how you've stopped grinding or how you noticed that you were grinding, and some of the things that worked or did not work in your journey to your healthiest best self. I know migraines and headaches they plague our nation, and I wouldn't be surprised if it really is starting in our jaw. But like as Katie said, it's not starting there, right? By the time it's in the jaw, it's already had taken root for a while. So let's peel back the layers. Let's see what's there and move forward with ease. Thank you so much for joining us today. Namaste.
Bye, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.